welcome to the channel. Make yourself at home, make yourself cozy, because the NBA playoffs had just reached its apex. And before we even get into anything else, let me just say this has been one of the best playoffs I've seen in recent memory, man. Every single round has had so many exciting moments, so many exciting narratives, and it's honestly it ending the way it's about to end. I mean, you really couldn't ask for anything better except maybe a Lakers-Clippers Western Conference final or something like that. But yeah, in the finals, we have the Los Angeles Lakers, led by LeBron James, led GM James, led Coach James, all that nonsense, versus the Miami Heat, that ragtag group of dogs, led by Jimmy Butler and Eric Spoelstra. Look, the Miami Heat haven't been to the finals since 2014. The LeBron James era. And of course, the first time they make it back to the finals is to play the man who defined them for about 3 to 4 years. Play the man who gave them 2 rings. Play the man who was the leader of their big three, their notorious big three. What a way to end the season, man. The Heat, and I'm gonna make a more detailed playoff and like my previous videos that my viewers are accustomed to, a more detailed playoff overview that goes through the ins and outs of the matchup strategy, what we could see, what we could not see. But I'm trying to beat the other content creators, and I'm trying to put out a video, so this will be my instant reaction. And the first thing that pops out to my head is this is probably the best matchup the Lakers have had all season, all playoff season, my bad. Trailblazers had 0 wings to guard anybody. They lacked the necessary bigs to guard AD and LeBron. The Lakers are probably the best team in the whole NBA when it comes to paint penetration and paint and scoring in the paint, right? The Trailblazers were a horrible matchup, talent-wise and specific matchup-wise. Rockets, talent-wise, they were up there, but matchup-wise, they had no bigs at all. They tried to go micro ball on one of the biggest, most efficient teams in the league, led by LeBron, a tank himself. And they had wings to guard LeBron. They had Covington. They had multiple people. But at the end of the day, their offensive style just couldn't cut it. They neutralized Westbrook by giving him the Tony Allen treatment, ignoring him, letting him talk his trash, letting him talk his nonsense. And they focused on the players who were actually doing stuff, which was their 5-out system with Harden driving in. And then this Nuggets team, one of the worst teams actually in the whole NBA, and especially in the postseason at paint protection. Their most used center, Nikola Jokic, is a below average defender. And I think that's putting it a little bit nicely. He's not too agile. He's not that strong. He's below. No, mate, I'll take the strong back. But he's a below average defender. And then you have Mason Plumlee, second most used center, who's atrocious at defense. We don't even need to go over that, because I'm still shaking my head every time I think about what he did. Anyways, so yeah, the Lakers have not had a good matchup up until this point. The Miami Heat, they got here because they invested. Pat Riley and Eric Spoelstra probably got together earlier in this couple years ago and said, we were going to build a team using elite or premier 3-and-D guys. They have multiple 3-and-D guys, multiple wings on this team. Andre Iguodala, Butler, Crowder, just to name a few, who can guard LeBron, who can guard their players. In fact, people like Iguodala, maybe if you really wanted to, could maybe, he couldn't guard AD. But in that zone defense, that team, they have multiple wings who play excellent team defense and will definitely give the Lakers the most trouble they've had, at least defensively, this whole postseason. The most trouble. And that's going to be very intriguing. The Heat themselves, the Celtics kind of figured out their zone. They figured out if you go directly through their top 2 wings, you either force the defense to collapse for a kickout, or you get a 1v1 opportunity against their big with maybe your more agile guard who can maybe make that double clutch. And the Celtics were no easy opponent. The Miami Heat beating the Celtics is very impressive. The Celtics themselves have multiple ball handlers who are also wings. Brown, Tatum, Hayward. They could play there was places where they could play Tice at 5 and Hayward at 4 and go small ball, and it's a very dangerous offensive team, and they handled that pretty well. There were stretches where they were outmatched. Celtics out-talented them. The Celtics have more talent. But the Heat, they stuck to their game plan, they stuck to their hearts, they stuck to their dog mentality, and they pulled out the win. The number one thing that the Heat did to beat the Celtics is execution in the fourth quarter. Time and time again, right? Every time the Celtics would win, it would be a blowout, right? Their talent would have just overtaken the game. But besides this night, all the Heat wins were basically rough it out, grind it out, who's better in the fourth, we're better in the fourth. And until the final 10 minutes, like for the first 2 minutes of the fourth quarter, that whole game was very tight, could have gone either way, right? But then the Heat just executed. They didn't lose focus, they knew what they had to do, and they got through. So now what can we look for quickly? Off the top of my head, right? This isn't going to be too detail oriented, but off the top of my head, what are we going to see in this Lakers-Heat matchup? I expect the Heat would have to go zone. They're going to have to try their best to force AD and LeBron to take those jumpers, right? That's the only thing they can do. And the Heat's, like, another advantage the Lakers had was their backup units. I think they've played better than they really are, even though they're amazing veterans. Howard, Rondo, and other guys I can't think of, Caruso. They're all very good, right? But they ran circles through the Rockets and through the Nuggets because those teams weren't mad. Like, I don't see that happening here. Let me just put it lightly. I don't see their second unit having as much success as they did against the previous teams. I don't see the team's effectiveness not dropping horribly when LeBron and AD goes to sit down, right? I think, and the Heat will have, if the Heat are going to have any chance, they have to make sure when the second unit plays the second unit, that their second unit trashes. They outplay, they out-hustle, they out-muscle the second unit of the Lakers, or else it's going to be a gentleman's sweep again. The only chance they have is to weather the storm of LeBron and AD picking apart their defense. Going on the hustle part isn't any worry, and keeping it a close game to the fourth quarter and then pulling out the victory. Another thing the Heat have an advantage in is that off-ball shooting. No team really has an answer for that Heat's off-ball shooting. Their off-ball movement, their pin downs, their high ball screens, off-ball screens for Robinson and stuff is very reminiscent of the Warriors. And it's a very hard thing to stop where you have people constantly moving in and around the rings. You don't know if the guy who you're chasing, right? The guy who's sprinting from the left corner three is sprinting to set a pick or sprinting to get a handoff for a three. It's very hard to stop. I'm not sure the Lakers really have the personnel to deal with all that running all game long. Not that they're going to turn to zone or anything, but the Lakers might have to turn to drop coverage or something for the majority of this game. And another question I really have, right, is Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler, up until this point, hasn't had to be the Superman. He is their best player, but he hasn't been their best scorer. What he does is he buys his time, he facilitates, he does a little bit things here and there. He's their leader, he's their cheerleader too. And then fourth quarter crunch time, he then tries to put on the cape, and it's worked for him. It's worked for that whole team. Can that work against the Lakers? There's a couple times where that got him in trouble against the Celtics, but they eventually pulled it out. Can that work against the Lakers? Can the team sharing the wealth of points really guarantee them that win? I don't know. Dragic is going to need to have a big game though. He's going to really need to outperform the opposing point guard, which will probably be Rondo. I don't know if he's going to start. If LeBron is on him, he is going to have to somehow get points, run LeBron off, and get points, man, to really execute. It's going to be very interesting. I'm not exactly sure how they're going to modify their zone to counter. That's why game one's going to be so interesting. But yeah, a very interesting series. Now this is time where I give my prediction. I'm taking the Lakers in 5. They'll gentleman sweep every single team in this postseason. That's what I think, because LeBron's a gentleman like that. You know, there's all this talk about he can't do it in the West, and he'll just be a polite gentleman and politely disagree with y'all and 4-1 every team on his way to a championship. But yeah, it's going to be very interesting. The Heat have to bring it with their second unit. The Heat have to be very effective on their off-ball shooting. And I'm not worried about the Heat not bringing it on the defensive end. I think their defense is going to give the Lakers a lot of trouble. If their offense is anywhere between decent, if they can get enough decent looks, if that Bam Dragic pick and roll can work even 75% effectively, they'll have a chance in the fourth quarter with 8 minutes left. They'll have a chance. But then that's where I see LeBron or AD going off and taking control of the game and just pulling it out. So while it might be a 4-1, 4-2 victory, it's going to be, I predict it's going to be pretty close in each and every game. Just like all the games the Heat won, I think we already talked about this, we're pretty close. I don't think, it's impossible for the Heat to really blow out the Lakers, and I don't think the Lakers will blow out the Heat with the defensive tools they have. But my one wish is, if the Heat do win, I want them to win with an Iguodala chase down block. I'm still a little bit feeling salty for Iguodala after LeBron blocked the heck out of him in 2016. Was it 2016? Man. Anyways, if you made it this far, you are a true basketball intellectual. So you see the nuances, you see the details, you see what other people don't see, and you know what great content, basketball content is when you hear it. Put something down in the comment. I would really like to talk to people like you. And yeah, be on the lookout for my more detailed analysis of my more detailed overview of this game. Yeah, peace out, stay safe, until next time. I'll see y'all.